It's Wednesday. It's the 7th of September. My name's Thane Kirby, and this here is Martin Bradbury, or Bomber, as a lot of people call him still. Welcome to the show, mate. How are you?
Bomber to my friends, Mr. Bradbury to my enemies.
Mr. Bradbury. Hey, so politics, it's all kicking off, right? We're counting down to the big elections.
14 months ago, 2023 election, big time. Going to be a shocker on the rocket.
Yeah, okay. So a big poll came out, Monday?
Roy Morgan poll, National 35, Labour 35, ACT 10.5, Greens 9.5. Interesting, shocker, Māori Party 5%. So it's looking very much like Labour, Green, Māori Party government.
Are Labour down to 35 or up to 35?
Up to 35.
And where's National Centre? Are they down to 35. That, up to 35 as well?
Yeah.
Right? Okay. But they've got Seymour. Have they got Seymour? Can they put any other numbers together?
Well, no. I mean, Seymour's just going to keep cannibalising the right-wing vote. I think what you're going to see is just the polarisation. Next year is going to be the most polarised election we've ever had. People who are hardcore National are just going to be hardcore National. People are hardcore Labour, just going to be hardcore Labour. I think what's interesting is that Māori Party vote. Why you're seeing suddenly it jumped to 5%. I mean, the last time, the highest party vote the Māori Party ever got was 2.5, and that was in 2008. For them to be recording 5%, something quite dramatic's happening out there. Right. I think it's demographics. Māori are just a much younger demographic. I think the vaccination campaign, where they went out to a whole bunch of Māori who previously hadn't been sort of connected into the communities, those new nerve endings are sort of kicking off a civic response. And also I think ACT and National have spoken pretty disparagingly, and there is a remarkable racism out there over things like Three Waters and co-governance. And I think a large chunk of Māori vote that's just never voted before, just doesn't believe in it, just for whatever philosophical structural reason, a lot of that Māori vote's going, no, screw it, we're voting this election. Because if you look at what ACT are promising, they're saying it's over with the Ministry of Māori Affairs. They're going to cut this, they're going to cut that. And I think for a lot of Māori, there's just been a level of racism out there that's really surprised them. Like, wow, white people really have an issue with this. And I think that's bringing a lot of Māori vote, traditionally that's been non-vote, back into the voting pie. And it'll be interesting going into next year, because obviously people who are quite concerned about co-governance or Three Waters are going to fire up when they realise that the Māori Party is going to be required to be part of a government, and that in itself will just fuel more of that polarisation.
I'm surprised that there's not more Jacinda and Labour hate, because I thought everyone was down on in that party.
Well, and again, I mean, I think polarisation-wise, for people who really hate Labour, they really hate Labour. But equally, there is a strong chunk of the country who genuinely do believe that Labour over the COVID period saved this country from a real bloody disaster. And she has loyalty for that. There are people who believe that what she did, what Labour did, was the best course of action, and they stand by that.
Okay. I mean, I think when people think Labour, they just think, they're going to help middle to lower class. They're not going to tie up the government with bureaucracy and extra staff. They don't even think PR companies anymore and spin. But the new Labour, they're all about that kind of stuff. So I guess, I'm harking back to the days gone by when you say Labour. So a lot of things have changed.
Yeah, and I think that, what that Sunday TVNZ program showed was, in 2017, the country freaked out when we saw kids and families living in cars. We then moved them all into a bunch of motels. Well, on Sunday TVNZ, we saw the way that that's actually been prosecuted, the way that's been furthered and put out there. those people have been dumped into these motels. Dreadful things are going on. People's safety aren't being looked after. And I don't think it's good enough to just say, well, it's better than they're on the streets. I actually, after looking at that TVNZ program, you go, well, they might actually be better on the streets. What's been set up here is a terrible situation. And if you're not going to build enough houses, this is where we get into. These are the problems, and they keep coming back to bite Labour in the arse. So if there is a Labour Green Māori Party government next year, Labour's going to be forced to actually build houses, I think.
There's a lot of stuff Labor's going to be held accountable for, including crime and the gangs. Now, they've been trying to get ahead of this whole gang stuff because it's been kicking them in the ass constantly. And also this overnight crime, the ram raids and stuff. And they're two separate things, obviously. It's like kids ram raiding. Yep. I don't know if they're working for gangs. But finally, we're getting harder. Can we ever outlaw a gang in New Zealand, or is that just too much?
Well, I mean, we've been trying to outlaw them since they were around in the 60s. I mean, it's very, very difficult to say, okay, well, this group is now banned, this is outlawed, unless you're actually committing domestic terrorism. You don't just get banned. And also, you don't want a government that can just ban people, right? That's quite, we're a liberal progressive democracy built on laws and civil rights. You can't just go banning people. The problem that we've had with organised crime, look, you've had this sudden influx of 501s. They've brought a level of professional criminality with them far heavier than the domestic gangs are capable of. There's been a power tussle for the meth trade. And I think the current clampdown has worked well. What we've got is a bunch of gang leaders now in prison. We've got a bunch of gang sergeants and arms people who've been doing violence. They've been moved into prison. But the new communication chains are being created between the gang who are in prison and being able to run their gangs from outside of it. So there are communication issues with corrections, and they've come forward and said we don't have the capacity to stop communications getting in and out of the prisons. So the gang leaders will be reasserting themselves. Also, a lot of the search warrants the police use to go into gang houses, they were all under search and surveillance powers for guns. Well, if those police officers found drugs, for example, while they're searching for guns, most of the judges won't be happy to allow the state to just have those drift net search warrants out. So quite a few of those cases might bounce. So there's a pause at the moment just because of the big police crackdown. Long term, however, the problems are still there. And I think there'll still be a lot of focus on the gang intelligence units being able to get ahead of that.
Destiny's Church, now it's a political party, it's a movement, and not just a disruptor to traffic and pissing people off. Yeah. So what's the deal there? What do you know about them? And are they for real? Have they got numbers? Or are we just this pie in the sky bullshit?
Oh, look, I mean, there is an anger in the New Zealand electorate, and certainly the QAnon and the hate algorithms, and people have gone down rabbit holes. There is a movement out there, and there is a momentum out there. They don't have a collective philosophy that connects them all together, but there is an anger. Tamaki maybe with the outdoor party and a couple of these other fringe groups. On their own, they can't get in there. But if they were to also bring in Matt King's New Zealand Freedom Party and also the New Conservatives, maybe altogether they might get over 5%. But with the current players, they won't be able to get over 5%. With just Brian Tamaki and the Outdoor Party, it's not enough.
It's just not going to work.
I mean, they'd only maybe get 2.5, maybe 3 at the best, and they need 5 to get across the threshold. But if they brought the New Conservatives in, maybe.
Local politics now. Auckland elections. One, why do we have, like with a national election, right? There comes an election day and we all get it done in 24 hours. Everybody has to go. This one's postal. Postal elections are the most boringest elections in the history of elections. Change it up, man. What can we do there?
It's just, I mean, barely 40% of Auckland bothers to vote in the mayoral elections. So anything that we're able to do that tries to generate more participation by Aucklanders would be welcome. So it'll be for 3 weeks. Voting's open for 3 weeks during that postal ballot. You just fill it in, send it back. I've got a funny feeling this time round, maybe it might be a high turnout. A lot of people have been impacted by COVID. A lot of people have been negatively impacted by Auckland shutting down. There's a lot of energy that wants to go somewhere. Where it will go, we're not sure, but I think it might be a high turnout, higher than we were expecting.
Who's your pick? It's a tough one, isn't it?
I think that Leo Molloy brought in a real wild card to this. He appealed to that 50% of Auckland that didn't vote, and he dragged in a large number of followers and supporters. Where that vote goes, well, the next person along who was most like Leo is actually Craig Lord. He's running a distant fourth, so that energy might go his way. Viv Beck's got some problems with her finances in the mayoral election campaign, with allegations of her not paying her social media team $330,000.
Yeah.
She will find it difficult because Wayne Brown has been taking so much vote. He has been bombarding ZB with advertising. The problem with Wayne, he's a very good technocrat and he could get things done, but he's doing very poor live debate performances. And I think people will look at those performances and be quite surprised that it's not nearly as credible as they thought, leaving it open, I think, for Professor Collins to possibly win. He's probably the most likely candidate who would at the moment.
Yeah, he's polled pretty high. He's always first, isn't he? First or second. He bounces around there.
Yeah.
So it's his to win.
Yeah.
But I watched the Hui the other night with Mihi Ngarangi Forbes.
Yes.
On 3 on they stream it. And Viv Beck's a really good talker, and so is Craig Lord. I thought they really shone in that. They're answering questions to the best of their ability as opposed to rolling out a fucking PR spin sheet.
Yeah.
Going through the bullet points of the campaign. And they are, when they don't know the answer, they kind of just go like, we need to sit down at the table, Māori need a seat, blah, 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 blah. But you know what? They're just not bumbling through it. And that can be really tough. It's not a good look if you don't have an answer, right? It's that 3-second kind of look around and then you wander and then find an answer.
Yeah, no, I mean they're pretty polished after this far down into the campaign, and the turnout will matter. Also, of course, the makeup of the wider council. The mayor has only one vote. He's got to win over everybody else on that council to be able to get things done. I think Aucklanders at this stage are just looking for anyone who's going to be able to make the gridlock slightly easier. That's all.
Yeah, totally. What about the smaller candidates that are never going to get airtime? Like Lisa Lewis is in the race. There's a couple of other wacky characters. Then there's a couple of genuine people that, man, if they actually got a spotlight on them, there could be something there. Is it always... You can't put everyone on TV, I suppose, but they really miss out, don't they? They never get invited to debates. And because the mayoral, this whole election is so hot right now, everyone's giving these candidates the time of day, except if you're the 5th candidate, then you're out.
Well, the media only have so much space on the screen, right. and seeing as about 70% of the vote generally goes to the top 4 contenders. That's just the nature of the game. But it's interesting because the candidate who had the most strength, Leo Molloy, pulling out suddenly as he did, left this large vacuum, and no one's really sure where it's going to go. So I don't think anyone's got a really good feel this time around for who's going to win the mayoral.
Do you think Leo misses it? Do you think he regrets it?
I think he regrets it like nothing else in his world.
Yeah. I mean, the weird thing about it is, it looked like if he got the job, he might have actually kind of been quite good at the job, or at least I could picture him as a mayor. That's the weird thing about it. I thought he had a shot, a really fucking good one.
I think the true legacy of of his campaign is that there is an angry electorate of Auckland out there that desperately wants their city back and feels that they've lost out on a quality of life, that things gone backwards somehow for them in Auckland. And once that rot starts stepping in and people start becoming jaded and cynical towards the process, and all they're looking to do is throw a grenade into the system, look, that's a poor reflection on the quality of democracy that we've got.
Cost of living and the payments and stuff. Good. I think more money from the government, the better. Probably not the best for inflation and stuff, or whatever affects other things. But I hopefully that money went to the right people, and they're actually, it gets a little bit extra petrol in the car or some more bread.
Oh, look, for people who needed that money on who are earning less than $70,000 a year, Jesus, it's manna from heaven, right? It meant something. Will it solve all of the problems? No. Will the cost of living crisis continue? Fucking absolutely. Are we going to have ongoing inflation costs? Look, I've been arguing double digits by December when it comes to food inflation. Things are going to get a lot worse. House prices probably have another 10% to fall. And wait for those gas prices to really start shocking through from Russia and what's going on in the Ukraine right now.
This really hasn't hit yet. Like Hoskins running out of material. Like, he's got the most negative show of all time.
Yes.
And he's saying this big shit show is about to hit. I thought it was going to hit 2 months ago.
I think he's right in that it's coming. I think that you've got a whole bunch of things that are going to happen in November, which could have real impacts on global economy. But the midterms in America, where is that going to go? Who's going to win? Can
I just say too that we can't really fail as long as there's an election next year, because we're just going to be bored. And cost of living payments, the petrol coming down. Suddenly, the shopping centres are playing ball because they got this big stick over them now. The government's letting people in the country. As long as
I think the measures that Labor have put in are all positive, but the problems coming our way are larger than their solutions.
Right. Okay.
From you look at what Xi will do going into the November conference in China. You're seeing already some of the most strict COVID shutdowns because they cannot allow COVID to overshadow the November conference. So it's really draconian measures.
China's still on lockdown, eh? They're still past China.
Yeah. Also, there is a lot of pressure on Xi to make some move on Taiwan in November. I don't think that they'll do a full invasion of Taiwan. That would be a disaster. But I think some of the smaller islands that Taiwan has, which are just very, very, very small ones, I think that China could absolutely overwhelm those in a show of force. In the Ukraine, Putin has just cut off the gas to Europe. They make them
still doing quite well though. Is Putin still doing very well, selling out?
Yeah. Still kicking along. The war is going to continue. And the full effect of the Ukrainian shutdown from everything. I mean, they produce 15% of the world's tradable calories, Russia and the Ukraine combined. A lot of base materials, things that you just wouldn't think of, all comes from the Ukraine. So expect an inflationary spike and pressure to continue going up all the way through, I think, until next year.
I'm interested in the US elections. So it's 2024, isn't it? So the countdown for Trump. What hurdles does he have to overcome to get what he wants elected again? Does he have to be the Republican Party have to re-elect him as the nominee, or what's how does that work?
Oh yeah. He's going to go through a primary process just like everyone else. It's interesting. The Roe versus Wade thing has tilted things amazingly to the Democrats. I don't think Republicans appreciate it. They're a bit of a dog that's caught the car and not sure what to do. They had been working on getting Roe versus Wade overturned for 60 years. They finally got it through a fluke thanks to Trump. They rammed it through, and the political backlash has been just so damaging. Palin lost Alaska. That really does tell you something. 70% of Trump's nutter brigade, people who claim the election was stolen, he got 70% of his candidates. So very extreme MAGA candidates going into the 2022 midterms who won't appeal to the middle. So the Republicans are looking for and are getting a hiding in November, and that will really surprise, I think, the Republican right.
So Trump, you think you can make a comeback? That's basically what I want to.
The problem for Trump is that he's almost forced and compelled to try and run because he's got so many legal problems now. The only way to avoid it is if he becomes the president and pardons himself, right? That's how crazy things are. I think that we're going to see, like I said, some really full-on inflationary pressures over the next 12 months. The Fed chair, Ian Powell, said that he has to push up the interest rates even more severely than they were. So expect another. I mean, I think there'll be more losses on the stock exchange, I think. And also how they deal with China and Russia going into next year. These will all be vital questions for the Americans. Depending on how the economy survives, Trump will either live or die on that, I think.
Questions, speaking of questions, Darren Fortune from Facebook says, thoughts on Liz Truss as UK PM?
I think that she is crazy right-wing, very, very, very supportive of giving rich companies much more in taxes, tax cuts for the wealthy. She's an ideological crazy. I think that they're in trouble, right? I mean, the UK are looking at 80% increases in their heating costs because of the gas cutoffs. They've got real problems in the economy. Their inflation has hit double figures, likely to be 13% by the end of the year. She has picked up a poison chalice. I think Boris Johnson's appeal was to Labour Party northern electorates, which the Tories had never had access to, and he brought them across, and he brought in windfall tax, because at least Boris understood that the poor like to see the rich getting taxed. Truss doesn't believe that. She'll be very right-wing. My guess is that the economy will fall even further. Things will get much more damaged in the UK, and Boris will make a comeback.
What's your thoughts on this monkeypox? It happens every 5 days. Once a week, we've got another little story, and New Zealand goes, we've got another one. Are you hearing anything we're not hearing? Is it
no. I mean, monkeypox. It's gotten into the West via sexual transmission, I'm not sure if that had been a previous carrier for monkeypox. That's why it's unique to the West. I mean, it circulates in Africa from time to time, but I don't think it's been circulating via sexual transmission. It's gotten into the West that way. It's not lethal. Well, it can be. If you get medication and the vaccine for it, it's. I just think we're a little bit scared of viruses. That's all.
Yeah, we really are, aren't we?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, matey. Quick Show's a great show. I want you to go back to your normal life. Give your working group podcast a plug.
7:30 Mondays, the Working Group, the number one political podcast in Aotearoa. We're very fortunate with that. Next week on Monday, in the studio, Bernard Hickey and a little someone you might know, Jack Tame.
Wow, Jack Tame. Hey, shit.
Yeah.
You really, I see what you're doing there. It's great.
Yeah.
All right, mate. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Have a great week.
You too.